Hey guys, the spring Apple event is just 2 days away and there have been a ton of leaks circulating around these past few weeks. The invite actually just came out last week, and what's interesting is the title, Peak Performance. It definitely suggests that Apple is giving us a peek into some new exciting hardware, but there are still a lot of unknowns heading into the event with inconsistent leaks. Most people do agree that we will be getting an updated, cheaper iPhone SE, a new iPad Air, and some sort of M2 Mac, which I will get to later. I'm super excited for this event, so let me share some of the more recent leaks with you guys. Let's start with the iPhone SE. The iPhone SE has always been a great option for people who wanted a cheap, fast, worry-free phone with long software support and didn't really mind the old design or the inferior cameras. It's always been a universally popular option, and in fact, some reports actually show that the iPhone SE was the second best-selling phone in 2020 after the iPhone 11 and sold a crazy 24.2 million units. Traditionally, the SE uses a recycled design with older chips and camera hardware to reach that lower price point, and this year isn't going to be any different. While some sites say that this year's iPhone SE will be using the slightly older A14 Bionic chip, which is plenty fast still, recent leaks have believed that Apple is going to include the latest and greatest A15 from the iPhone 13 lineup. However, the top headline feature for this phone is the 5G capability, and although the hype around 5G died a while ago, it's still a good move for Apple in order to future-proof the phone, although I'm pretty sure that it's going to make the already bad battery life even worse. But what was not always feature-proof about the iPhone SE was the design. The latest iPhone SE from 2020 uses the older design from the iPhone 8, and we're expected to see that again this year. Personally, I really wish for the day when the iPhone SE can take over the iPhone 13 mini design, but I guess we'll have to wait another couple of years for that. As for the display, the 2022 iPhone SE will still have the same 4.7-inch screen from all the old iPhones we know and used to love, with Touch ID and no Face ID, but this can all be forgotten if the leak price of $299 holds true, which is a whopping $100 cheaper than the launch price of the current iPhone SE. This would be insane, especially with all the inflation and stuff going on in the world right now, and Apple will definitely sell even more buckets than they did with the previous SEs, assuming that the chip shortage doesn't affect production for these phones very much. Apple's reportedly going to be dropping the old SE to around $199 as well to replace the aging old iPod, which could be a great deal for little kids. Also, if you want to see me cover the iPhone SE, drop a comment down below to let me know, and also subscribe to the channel because I make some really cool content. Now, before we get to the star of the show, let's all calm down a little bit by talking about one of the more relatively boring updates, the iPad Air. The iPad Air 4, which is the current model, was a pretty successful release in bringing the more expensive iPad Pro design and Apple Pencil 2 support into a smaller and significantly cheaper body. In fact, it was such a good value that most people called it the iPad Pro killer, and it was a great option for anyone who wanted the features of the iPad Pro but would rather have some spare change left in their wallet. But fast forward a year and Apple has released an all-new iPad mini that has the same design, the same Apple Pencil 2 support, faster processors, more camera features, and a cheaper price tag, which is pretty awkward for the people who wanted to consider the iPad Air. So this year, Apple plans to play catch-up with the iPad Air 5 by adding the latest A15 Bionic chip, a new ultra-wide selfie camera with support for center stage, which basically allows the camera to track and follow you around, and 5G capabilities in the cellular model. The price is expected to be $599 as well to match the current pricing, although I would have loved to see the base storage option being bumped up to 128GB because I think 64GB is just way too little now. And yes, even though this does seem like a super boring update, it does help Apple maintain the iPad Air as the poor man's iPad Pro, continuing to make it a great recommendation for students and creatives alike. A feature I would have loved to see would be the ProMotion display from the iPad Pro making its way down to the iPad Air, because I actually feel like it makes a really big difference, especially if you use the Apple Pencil to write notes or draw a lot. And finally, we get to what's supposed to be the star of the show, the M2 Max. The leaks have been pretty inconsistent about which devices we are going to be seeing in the event, but we will for sure see an announcement of the new M2 chip, judging from the name Peak Performance. The M2 chip is supposed to be only a minor improvement from the current M1 chip, which is still a great option today. There won't be any CPU improvements other than small speed and efficiency improvements, but there will be 2 extra GPU cores of 9 and 10 core options, up from the current 7 or 8. It'll definitely be interesting to see how much of an improvement in performance it actually brings to these devices. I'm hoping the improved efficiency also leads to even better battery life on the MacBooks as well. Some of the devices we could see in the event include a new base model MacBook Pro, new Mac Minis, and the iMac Pro, although I really wouldn't count on that as much as we all want it. Starting with the new base model MacBook Pro, it'll unfortunately be keeping the same outdated designs as the older MacBooks with a 13-inch screen with thick bezels and most likely a physical function row instead of the touch bar. It'll have the same LCD screen without mini LED or ProMotion, which is honestly a little disappointing considering it's a device meant for prosumers, but it's still a decent screen. The only upgrade we will be seeing is the M2 chip, which seems like a minor spec bump from the current base model MacBook Pro. This brings me to the question though, what's the point of the MacBook? First of all, later this year, Apple is going to be releasing the M2 MacBook Air, which has a completely brand new redesign. It's going to have fun colors on the outside, a brand new white look on the inside with thin bezels and a notch on the display, plus a white keyboard. It's also going to have the new MagSafe port and updated Thunderbolt 4 ports. Put that side by side with the more expensive Pro model and doesn't that look confusing? The MacBook Air will be better in every way at a cheaper price point, so I'm not really sure where the M2 MacBook Pro will fit in the lineup. It'll also just look like the most outdated MacBook once the current MacBook Air is replaced. Something redesigned that might show up in this event is the new M2 Mac Mini, which should be a pretty exciting upgrade. It's supposed to get a new sleeker design that's thinner and smaller overall, and we might even see a plexiglass top, which should lead to better connection on Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, as the current gen M1 Mac Minis have been plagued with bad connection issues. There should also be new ports including a MagSafe charging port just like the iMac. I also really hope that we get new vibrant color options, and the pricing hasn't been confirmed yet, but many speculate that it's going to replace the Intel Mac Mini that's still shown on the website at $1099. I'm personally hoping for a lower price point, especially since that the M1 Mac Mini can be found for only $699. As for whether there will be an M1 Pro / Max Mac Mini, there still hasn't been much information about it, but it is long overdue, just like the iMac Pro, which we probably won't be seeing at this event unfortunately. There was a recent leak that Apple was working on a more powerful Mac Mini called the Mac Studio, in addition to some new external displays, so there might be a separate event for those prosumer Macs later this year. Maybe that's what Apple meant by peak in the title. Hopefully we do get that Mac event sometime soon. And finally, there are going to be new iPhone 13 case colors, which are always nice to see, in addition to some software updates. Personally, I'm really excited for macOS 12.3, which is going to give us universal control. That basically means you can control all your devices from one keyboard and mouse, and it does that seamlessly. And that's basically all the leaks rounded up for you guys before the event. I'm actually pretty happy that there's still a lot we don't know going into the event, because that makes the event more fun of surprises, like last year's amazing spring event, which is going to be pretty difficult to beat. Also, let me know what you predict will show up in the event, as I want to hear your thoughts. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to smash that like and subscribe button for more awesome content like this. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.